Good morning, sunshine. Welcome to the Cup of Curious podcast with Will, where we talk pop culture, music, movies, faith, and more. So grab your favorite overpriced caffeinated drink and join the conversation. This is the Cup of Curious podcast. You're on, Will.
Hey, family, what's going on? It's the Cup of Curious podcast, and I know that you have been waiting for this particular episode because we're talking about sex. Oh yeah, and not just any kind of sex, Christian sex. And we're gonna oh my god, I gotta behave myself. I'm so sorry. Seriously, family, what's going on? Welcome to the Cup of Curious podcast with me, your man Will. And I'm not lying though. We are talking about sex, but we are talking about sex in the context of Christian music. So for some reason I wanted to do that. It was just funny to me. It looked funny on paper. I don't know if that sounded funny to you, but anyway, that was always weird to me. That kind of music just like inspired sex in people. It was just weird, like that 70s porn music, whatever that was. I just went to YouTube and looked up royalty-free sex music, and that's what came up. Oh my god, this makes me sound so mature. I'm sorry. I apologize. Anyway, guys, like with most episodes of Cup of Curious, I like to talk about any new or interesting drink I may have, and I'm gonna make it a priority that whenever I do the podcast, I am going to have a drink unique that you haven't heard of, or at the very least, I haven't mentioned on the podcast. And I'm drinking bubbly. No, not alcohol. Y'all can calm down. I'm drinking the sparkling water, flavorless flavored water. I think it's called. It's peach bubbly. Don't ask me why I have to pronounce it like that. I just do bubbly. You know, speaking of which, the professional wrestler Chris Jericho, he just released a brand new bottle of champagne of his own called a little bit of the bubbly. I'm not endorsing alcohol. I just think it's funny because it started off as a catchphrase, and look at him. Anyway, on with the show. So yes, this is something I've been curious about for the longest time, and that is sex in Christian music, because as a believer, you almost can predict what every song is going to be about. It's going to be some form of worship, or it's going to, involve God in some way, or it's going to be, it's going to be positive in some way or another. But you rarely ever hear songs, if not ever, about intimacy. And I think that's so bizarre that we kind of give the mainstream this invisible authority, or this invisible exclusivity to say, hey, you guys can make sex music, we'll just stay over here. And I just think that's so bizarre. And the reason I even came up with this idea for this episode, I actually written about it in a blog a couple of months ago, maybe a year ago. It was because rapper Sho Baraka, he's a rapper and a poet and now a teacher. Him and I believe his wife did an album, and there's a song in there called Nasty. And it's talking about their relationship between one another. Now, it's not explicit by any means, but it is talking about, them being, I guess, for the lack of a better term, nasty. But it did make me wonder, why don't we have songs about intimacy? Can it be done? Is it too taboo? Is it too extreme? Because there's definitely Christian love songs, or love songs that are done by Christian artists, and some of them are very good, some of them are kind of cheesy, admittedly. I'm sorry guys, I'm one of those Christians who admits when we have cheesy love songs or cheesy songs, period. That's just me. But we rarely have any kind of music where somebody desires to be intimate with their partner. We either end up, listening to the mainstream music that's designed for baby making, or we don't listen to music at all. And I'm not saying either one is bad, but I'm just saying it'd be nice to, not that I would know. As of the time of this recording, I'm single. I am looking, and yeah, So I'm gonna leave it there. But I think as an artist myself, obviously since I have no experience. Damn, I just gave myself since I don't have an authority to make a song about that, since I don't have experience with it. But I think if there's a married couple who are, obviously married and they've been intimate, they could provide, music for the Christian couple who desires to be intimate. Because I'm sorry, at the end of the day, I think it's kind of odd if your idea of intimate music with Christian lyrics is you and your spouse being intimate to oceans, or Levantos mis manos, which is a Latin gospel song. It's kind of weird. And it is to me anyway. So, as always, when I have these kind of questions, I like to post a poll on Instagram, on social media. Now, I did it on Instagram, but not on Facebook. And it's interesting when you do polls on Instagram, because you can see how many people seen the post. You can see how many people also voted. So about 38 people seen this poll, but only 8 voted. Now my question was, would you be upset if a Christian/gospel artist were to do songs about being intimate, i.e. baby making music by Christians? 6 voted that they would be bothered by that, and they wouldn't want, said artists to do those kinds of songs. And only 2 voted that, yes, they wouldn't be, they wouldn't be bothered. Did I say that backwards? I'm so sorry. 6 said yes, they would be bothered, and 2 voted that they wouldn't be bothered. Now, what's interesting about the no votes is that one of those votes came from a person who I know, who I'm not going to, bring their name up. They are an artist. They are a Christian artist. And that person said yes, and I thought that was very interesting. And I tried to get some insight, some more feedback from that person as to why they feel that way. And unfortunately, they didn't want to further the conversation. So because of that, I'm not going to mention that artist's name. But that shows to me that, I'm not the only one who's thinking this way. And on the Cup of Curious podcast Instagram page, another Christian artist said, hey, that sounds like a good idea, or not a good idea. He said, that's a good topic. That's a good thing to discuss. And again, sex is one of those things that's very seldom talked about in the church, period. I think it's because one is extremely personal, which, that's a big obvious, duh. You shouldn't, I think if you're going to have that kind of conversation about intimacy and sex, it should be in a place where, if you are going to do it in a church, you should make it one of those things where, hey, 18 and over, people who are together, people who are married, people who are planning to get married, that kind of thing. I think that's good, as opposed to having a bunch of immature youth going in there laughing because they hear the word the penis or whatever. You know how they can be. Anyway, I also reached out to a brother and sister in the faith who I mentioned before. In their ministry, they're known as Colon Tres. Now, my Spanish is bad, but I know I pronounced that correctly. Or Colon Tres for you people who can't roll your R's. They are a husband and wife. They are worship leaders at my local congregation. And they are currently, God has opened doors for them, and they are going around the country. They're currently in Boston, Massachusetts, as of the time of this recording. And they're ministering. And they were able to give me their feedback on the subject matter, because I asked them, do you think sex belongs in Christian music? This is their response. Excuse me. Things to consider. You have to be aware of your listeners. Not all may be married. Sex between a husband and a wife is, of course, a blessing, but it is an intimate act between the two, and it should stay there. Let's say if a young person listens to a song talking about sex, knowing that at a young age their hormones are going crazy anyway, songs about making love, touching, etc., is going to enter into their ear gates and download into their mind and soul and awaken desires subconsciously. Music has the ability to stir up emotions, memories, whether they are good or bad, and have a bad effect on their thoughts, actions, and words. So we have to be very cautious in writing and producing music intelligently to inspire to do what's right in God's eyes. You can speak on love, of course, how you met and fell in love without the extra information. And they put a little LOL at the end. And I understand where they're coming from. But then I also received a very simple response from my teacher for many years, Professor Miguel Cotto. He said in response, I agree that believers must speak, write, and sing songs that are related to marriage and intimacy. And he points out that the Song of Solomon is a perfect example of it. And that's an interesting point that he made. Now, I want to state for the record that both of these comments have their what's that word? You know, they have their points. You know, they have their merits. That's the word, merits. And while I agree that we have, as artists, that we have to be careful in what we write, I think that there are some artists, like in the case with Sho Baraka, like I mentioned, where you feel like the world shouldn't have, or the mainstream, whatever you want to call it, they shouldn't have the right or the exclusivity of writing songs about intimacy, that we should be able to do that as well. And that kind of goes back to the point of my teacher, Miguel Cotto, where we need to write about these things. Now, like I said, me personally, I don't have no experience in that, so I have no right to write about that kind of thing. I could simply write about me being single. You know, I do have desires like any other man. Sometimes there's struggles with the lust, of course. And then there's, falling in love and, having your heart broken. Like, in those degrees, I could write songs, in terms of sex and intimacy and all that, because that's where I'm at currently. But as opposed to someone who's like I said, in a relationship, who's in a God-serving marriage and a God-honoring marriage, and they do music, and I'm not just talking about Colon Tres, I'm talking about any married couple who's doing music together. I think that there should be some sort of alternative as opposed to what the world is offering. Again, my main issue with this whole thing is that I don't believe that people who are not Christians should have that exclusive right. Now, that doesn't mean everyone has to write, music that's about sex. But I think there should be some believers who are, I guess, mature enough first and foremost, and bold enough to do that kind of thing. I'm obviously not talking about, outright talking about what y'all doing exactly in the bedroom and that kind of thing. What I mean is within the context of marriage. Because we can't act like being a Christian means we're anti-sex, because I think that's one of the biggest problems the church has, because we talk about sex and intimacy so seldom in the pulpit, that I guess some believers don't know how to grasp it. And it's not like the Bible is prudish or, about intimacy. As Cotto pointed out in the Song of Solomon, we have very good examples in the Song of Solomon that, sex or sexual attraction is not a bad thing, or how we characterize it. With that being said, I'm actually going to go to the Song of Solomon. If you have your Bibles or your Bible apps, you can pause the podcast and you can follow me. We're going to the Song of Solomon, chapter 7, and we're going to be reading from verse. What is that? Verse 1. I'm sorry, guys. I'm looking at my laptop through for the Bible, from 1 all the way down to. There's a lot. Let's do 10. Let's go from 1 to 10. So let's read this right quick, and you can follow me. because I'm just trying to illustrate a point about, describing a partner in a tasteful, respectful way, which I think is done here in the Song of Solomon. How beautiful are your feet in sandals, you daughter of princes. The curve of your thighs are like a necklace made by a skilled craftsman. Your navel is like a round goblet that never lacks spiced wine. Ew. Your belly is a heap of wheat encircled by lilies. Your two breasts are like fawns, twins of a gazelle. Your neck is like a tower of ivory. Your eyes like the pools in Heshbon by the gate of Bat Rabbim. Your nose is like a tower in the Lebanon, overlooking Damascus. You hold your head like the Carmel, and the hair on your head is like purple cloth. The king is held captive in its tresses. How beautiful you are, my love, how charming, how delightful. Your appearance is stately as palm trees, with its fruit clusters your breasts. I said, I will climb into the palm tree, and I will take hold of its branches. May your breasts be like clusters of grapes, your breath as fragrant as apples, and your mouth like the finest wine. And just in case you're curious about what version I'm reading from, I looked at different versions and I like this one the best. This is from the Complete Jewish Bible, or the CJB. I actually read this the most. I read this version the most rather than NIV, and especially more than KJV, but that's besides the point. You see how Solomon is illustrating a woman's body, right? He's talking about her thighs, that they're jewels. Her navel, which I believe is the belly button, or the area of the belly button, is like a round goblet that never lacks spiced wine. He's talking about her breast. He talks about her neck, her nose, her hair. He talks about her breast again. Her breath and her mouth is like wine. Bro, Solomon knew exactly what he was doing when he wrote this. I would not be surprised that women swooned over this kind of stuff. Then again, if you say this stuff now, girls may be offended or triggered or whatever the case may be. You know what? That's not necessarily true, because there's a 2011 article. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can pull it up really quickly. Give me 1 second, family. And in The Atlantic, there was a 2011 article that says 92% of the top 10 Billboard songs are about sex. Now, again, this is not me trying to say, hey guys, let's all get together and start using the words breast and penis and vagina in our music. Oh, this is gonna get me demonetized on YouTube. Oh, anyway, that's my problem, not yours. But you understand what I'm trying to say. But Solomon was creative in this regard, because he knew how beautiful this woman that he had in his life was. Whether it was one of his brides or concubines, I don't know. But the point is that he was describing how beautiful this woman is. I don't think it's too bad or too wrong or too taboo for a Christian singer to go this route. Now, this does mean that you may have to put, a parental advisory, explicit content, which we're so used to seeing on explicit rap and hip hop albums or other albums with, obviously explicit content. And that just brings up a whole nother question. Does explicit content means it's bad? And I'm talking about in this context, of Christian music. If let's hypothesize. Let's think. What's that word? Yeah, hypothesize real quick. That there's a Christian couple or group, whatever, and they release an album and it has an explicit parental advisory warning. But it's only there because they chose to do a song about intimacy. Is that a bad Christian album? Is it wrong? Because obviously these things of intimate nature, you don't want to talk about, with kids and stuff like that, because they're kids. But when hormones are kicking in, like my brother and sister mentioned, for a younger person who may listen to this music, it should be noted that maybe we can somehow inform this young person that your desires are natural. Like your desire to be intimate, you're sexually attracted to this person, this woman or a girl, whatever the case is. That's natural because God gave you and I'm talking to you, the listener, and me. God gave you and I a sex drive. So it's perfectly natural and normal for us to be sexually attracted to someone of the opposite sex. I'm saying it like this because I believe what the Bible says about how marriage should be, who it should be between with. I love everybody, regardless of lifestyle, but this is the context in which I'm speaking of. It's okay to be sexually attracted to somebody, but there's a thin line between sexual attraction and lust. And poof, that is a thin line. And that's another conversation for another time. But back to the point, the music, we can somehow maybe use this music to show this young person that, hey, again, what you're feeling is normal, but you should reserve that passion you have from when you're married, which is kind of what the Apostle Paul was talking about when he said that, hey, you guys should be single, but because you guys are burning with a passion, just go ahead and get married. And what did he mean when he said you guys are burning with a passion? He ain't talking about the movie with Jim Caviezel, whatever his name is. No, this guy's basically saying, since you guys are all sexually excited, just go and get married so you can go ahead and be intimate so that in the end you don't end up committing fornication. That's what he was trying to get across. At least that's what I believe he was trying to get across. You guys are stimulated, but you don't want to sin against God, then go ahead, go get married so then you guys can do what you want to do. And I remember hearing this comedian one time saying, we all know why Christians get married so fast. You fall in love, you get married in a month because we all know why you want to get married. And I think it kind of alludes to what Paul was saying. That might be true. I don't know. I guess I'll let you guys know when I fall in love and get married. I'll let you guys know the time gap between my engagement and my honeymoon, and y'all tell me. Anyway, but yeah, I think if done carefully, and I'm not saying that Colon Tres was wrong in what they're saying, because they did say we have to be careful. They didn't exactly say, no, you shouldn't. I think they were just speaking what they would do in particular. And again, since I have no experience in that degree, I can't really say much either. But like I said, there are artists out there who have, marriages, and they've obviously been intimate, especially if they have kids or if they adopted. Anyway, there's artists out there who know what intimacy is like, and they may be compelled to combat against what the mainstream is putting up in terms of music that sexually stimulates a couple. This isn't to say that every single song in the mainstream that's sex driven is bad. Again, within the context of marriage, I don't think it's necessarily wrong to listen to Boys to Men. Again, no experience, but I'm just imagining Boys to Men or any other R&B artist that may get you guys wanting to be intimate. I just think it would be good if there was a Christian or gospel alternative to that. I don't know. Do you guys think I'm wrong? Do you agree that we should just write love songs and leave intimate parts out? Or we should be bold enough to do that and offer an alternative? Do Christians need baby making music? Like I said, everyone's different. Everyone's intimate in a different way. But for those who are intimate and get intimate with music, should the world have that exclusive right to do that kind of music? And if the answer is no, then how do we approach that? I'd be more than interested to hear your point of view. Obviously, if you're listening on YouTube, just hit the comment section and let me know. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you can always let me know at cupofcurious@gmail.com, or you can shoot to the Instagram page at Cup of Curious Podcast. But guys, this was a fun episode. I think in the beginning I showed my immaturity, but in all seriousness, this is a serious subject, and I am a mature person in regards to this. I understand what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. Maybe not the intimacy part, but I know what I'm talking about in terms of at least how I feel about the world or the mainstream having that exclusive right. I don't think they should have that. I think I am mature enough to, make that statement. Anyway, guys, I love you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving last week. I hope you are getting ready for your other holiday endeavors. And of course, with the New Year's coming up, I know some of you have probably already got your New Year's resolutions jotted down. You're going to go to the Planet Fitness and quit after 2 weeks. Let me stop, because that was me at one point. Anyway, guys, just a reminder again, I am drinking Bubbly. The brand is Bubbly, and it's peach-flavored seltzer water, but it's not sweet at all. So why don't you guys go grab a can and taste it? Let me know what you think. I like it because sometimes I crave soda and I need to drink something. And since I cut soda completely from my diet, I drink seltzer water, sparkling water, whatever name you want to call it. Taste it and let me know. Are we on the same page? Because I give this a thumbs up. But until then, guys, I will see you on the next podcast. And on the next podcast, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about myself. It's going to be an hour-long podcast only because, my birthday is this week. I'm not the type of person to be like, hey, yo, it's my birthday. Say happy birthday. I'm not that type of person. But if you want to know, it's December 5th, this Thursday. And on the next podcast, I'm going to talk about a little bit about my story, a little bit about my testimony, why I'm the way I am, like my sense of humor, the way I talk, just a little bit of background story. And like I said, it's going to be like an hour-long episode. It's going to be one of those special episodes. So if you want to know about me a little bit more, come next week. All right, guys? But until then, God bless you guys. I love y'all, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks for listening to the show. Have a suggestion for the next episode? Want Will to answer a question? Want a recommended drink or tell him to give the voiceover guy a pay raise? Then shoot an email at cupofcurious@gmail.com or slide in our DMs on Instagram at cupofcurious. Remember, stay thirsty and stay curious.